And now we're live. I always have to start it with that. So I'm Laura Jane, and I'm here with my friend Chris. I'm going to say it Reavis. Am I saying it right, though? I feel like I'm not, though.
It's close enough. It's pronounced Revis because it's Scottish
Revis.
and weird, but it sure looks like Revis.
Okay. I'm sure I asked you that last time we did one of these, but thanks for being willing to be back with me for this kind of thing. And yeah, I was so happy to know I wanted to call you in for this Parenting Boost series. And as I was telling you, you're the first dad and male that I've had on here. So
Right
I
on.
do plan to talk to more and more men and people who aren't just women and moms. But yes, so thank you being
So
willing
excited
to
to be
have me
here.
back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you are, I know some of what you do. And so, yeah, I had fun calling you a dad blogger because I know
Yep.
that's just one of the things I know that you have a website and a blog from
Yep.
a dad's perspective, right?
I do. Yeah. So I'm a parent first and foremost. That's my number one job. I've got two kiddos who I love and adore. On the side, I look to serve families like mine and other families. So I don't mind sharing. I have kiddos who struggle with autism and depression and those sorts of things. So I've certainly been through those. Um, and I work full time in tech. I love doing that, but I really feel a calling right now with coronavirus and work from home and school from home to serve families. So I'm stepping into that.
Yeah, yeah. And I know, I mean, I'm going to bring it up already that I love that you are offering to be someone doing some coaching with parents with your combined expertise and interests at this time, right? With families who could use some support in home and life design and working with the new educational situations.
Yeah, exactly right, Laura Jane. So, and I can go through that. I've got some slides. We're not really sure if they're sharing or not. If not, we'll put them in the comments below. But yeah, I'm putting together, it's actually already together a combined program that's got some brain science from Harvard and Yale about how to work with kids and families who struggle and how to find a way to thrive regardless of the circumstances. And I'm going to share a little bit of that today. It's really excited about sharing that. It works wonders. I've done things with my autistic kiddo that no one really thought would work, and they absolutely do. So I'm excited to share it because I think it's a really useful tool right now. I'll be sharing a little bit some accelerated learning stuff that's been around for 80 plus years, Tony Buzan and others, how we all learn. And so if you have kiddos that seem like they're not listening, there might be something there that you're not aware of. They may not be auditory, they may be kinesthetic or visual, and they can't
Mm.
listen, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit. And I have a little bonus too. So happy to talk about all those things if you want to go there.
Yeah, I'm so
Okay.
happy to have you here. And yeah, is there anything else that you already gave us a nice little intro to what you're up to? Is there anything else you like to share as part of telling the story of how you became someone talking about these kind of things and thinking
Sure.
about these kind of things?
I didn't get like an action adventure doll as a kiddo to do this work, right? It really came about of just going through some hard times with my family and handling things that were unexpected, right? I didn't expect some of these things to happen, and the conventional wisdom that I grew up with from my parents and their family of origin didn't work, right?
Mm.
And it took, blowing up and being humble and learning that stuff, and just years of doing that and being exposed to that. And it's so exciting being on the other side of it because families don't have to struggle as much as we are. And
Mm.
there's some science-based approaches and certainly holistic-based approaches that are, awesome, immediate, practical aids that, every parent can do with their family today. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what gets me excited is
yeah.
being able to help in that way.
Yeah, and it sounds like what kind of tools you're talking about could work for all families and all or many families and many children, right? Whether or not you feel like your child has a specific diagnosis or specifically struggles with anything, but really that we all have emotions and life that we're going through. So I'm excited to hear some of what you've learned, again, just science based,
Yep.
research based, and then really based towards children and what can work with
Yeah.
kids too. So that's really an exciting combo that we haven't heard a lot about.
Okay.
modern. So yeah, so go ahead and take it.
Okay, awesome. And again, I'm sorry if the slides aren't sharing. We'll find a way to share them, and I will talk like they are or not. But
Perfect.
the organization I've started is You From Home. So we're doing work from home, we're doing school from home, we're also doing You From Home. So we offer services to families, and that includes the kiddos as well. So you can thrive regardless of the circumstances. And we're really targeting what's going on now with school from home and COVID and an election year and social unrest and all those things, including just raising a family right now. So on the slides, if they're there, the first thing I've got is it's not your fault. And I think a lot of people go there at first. Like, I can't figure out my job and my work and my kids' stuff and all this, and I'm somehow faulty. You're not faulty. It's not your fault. There's a lot going on. 2020 has probably been one of the biggest challenges for families and all sorts of people, but really for families, certainly the pandemic. And if your family's not affected, you probably know someone who does. You've got parents, grandparents, what have you. It can be scary, right? And that can be a level of stressor that you might not have experienced before, right? We don't go through pandemic training, most of us, and know how to handle that. So that's a stressor our bodies don't really know how to handle. Certainly the economy is affected and our livelihoods are challenged. Working from home and schooling from home for those of us that can work from home is tricky. And then, of course, the social unrest. There's a lot of things and messages out there on social media. So, left unchecked, that can like bombard us, right? And it can be hard to be an effective leader in your family.
Well said.
There's good news. So for just a moment, like despite all this stuff coming at us, and it comes at me too, and I talk to my wife sometimes of things I'm upset about and get caught too, but for just a moment, I would just invite folks to imagine, close your eyes if you want, but just imagine what it would look like if you were handling just like incredibly well. Like, ignore the circumstances and your brain telling it's not going well. Just pretend for a moment that it's going amazing, and just kind of hold that a little bit every day. Like, what would you feel like? What would you look like? What would your family be like? Again, regardless of the circumstances, they're there, they're hard. But what would it look like if your family could just thrive and just take off? And I talk about that in my work quite a bit. The things I'm going to go over, and thanks for alluding to them, they are based on 50 years of brain science, and probably thousands of years of yoga and other things too. But I tend to be a little more left brain. And so seeing CAT scans before and after and data from really honest institutions like Harvard and Yale and that are vetted, for me, makes it land more. Like, I know in my body it's right, but when I see that data and evidence, that's what helped me get through this. It's based on some innovative learning practices. So whole brain learning, right brain, left brain, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And then it's worked for thousands and thousands of families, certainly mine. Just to make it for folks' time, we'll put a link below. I've got a free, and I won't spam you, there's just 3 little emails you'll get with some infographics and some tools you can use right now, so you can dive a little deeper into the stuff we're talking about. And if it looks like it's a fit and you want to explore working together, that will be there too. There's zero pressure. I'm really here to serve, but just putting that out there if there's any interest. So again, I want to go back to all the stressors we're facing for just a second and be honest. Like, are you feeling weary or nervous or longing for real connection because we're all kind of this weird remote state, or maybe even feeling a little desperate for real support? I think a lot of us are, if we're being honest. There's times in the day that's happening, and that's sadly normal. What we turn to is what we know from our family of origin or experiences, right? And what I'm here to say a little bit is some of those things aren't working, or we wouldn't even be talking. We wouldn't be here. So, more education apps aren't going to solve it. Dedicated daycare alone probably won't solve it. Headphones for you and your kiddos alone won't solve it. Traditional parenting is going to have some issues, especially command control. And pretending it doesn't exist and we're not really going through this isn't going to work either. So I've tried all those. That's why I put them there. I promise they don't work. And I think it's human nature. So I'm excited to share you 3 ways right now practically you can get your family thriving, and to that visual spot that maybe you just had a quick imagination, a little glimpse of what it would look like. Yeah. So the first way to reduce family drama and build resilience, long-lasting resilience, is this brain-based approach I alluded to Harvard and Yale that it comes from, called collaborative problem solving. It's a big name and maybe not the best name, but it absolutely works. It's incredibly powerful and it's really simple. So I'm going to walk through really quickly how our brains work. Brain Science 101. And for those of you that really are brain scientists, my apologies. I won't be accurate, but I'll be directionally correct. So at the base of our brains, I call it our primitive brain. It's a very important part of our brain that all of our senses flow in. So what you see, what you hear, what you touch, all flows in there no matter what. And there's a massive filter. You can think of it like a Google filter of it relaying what part of the brain to route this to. Now, if you are in stress, if you're in fight or flight, or you experience stress you haven't done before, it will not route it. It's literally like if you turn off like the electrical box to your house and try to turn your lights on and off, they won't go on and off. So literally, your prefrontal cortex, where there's reasoning and problem solving, can't even go. So if you're in fight or flight, or you're more stressed than normal, and maybe anyone out there listening has felt like they're so angry they can't think straight, or sad you can't think straight, that's what's going on. You really can't, because the electricity can't get to these awesome parts of your brain to solve. So brain science in a nutshell, that's how it works. It's important to share that because this is how empathy and collaborative problem solving take that apart. And it's going to sound a little woo, but it's based on science. I've used it with my kiddos, even my son on the spectrum. It works every time, all the time. And it's just, it becomes a lot of fun. He actually uses it on me too. So the first part, and really the only part I would want anyone listening to this the first time to focus on, is empathy. And it's a specific, I'll call it fidelity of empathy, a specific way of really hearing your kiddo. I will preface it by things I used to think empathy was, and it's not. So empathy is not sympathy. We're not feeling sorry for them. You know, this is an empowering thing for them to validate where they're coming from, not poor pitiful kiddo, which we can go to as parents. You want to protect them, but this is really, you're building resiliency in them. So you do this at a time that things aren't charged. So if it's heated in the moment, you're upset, wait, okay? And then pick a place, go for a walk, go for a bike ride, do it outside, do it in a place that's not charged. And the conversation needs to be pretty specific. So let's pretend that my kiddo had trouble getting up in the morning, getting his clothes on, getting breakfast ready, and getting ready for school. I'm sure I'm the only parent that has that problem, but let's just bear with me. So, and even ready for school at the laptop. So, you know, that would go something like, hey, my son's name's Cooper. Hey, Coop, you're not in trouble. It's really important to put them at ease so they're not in a troubled state and go to fight or flight. You're not in trouble. Just noticed yesterday getting ready was really rough. What's up? And then as a parent, quiet. Okay, you're not thinking of the next thing. You're not thinking, but you're literally giving them the space, and you're validating whatever they say. So if Coop would say, yeah, I was really upset, I was really tired, my job is to say, I understand, that's really hard, right? Think about when I was 11 years old in my son's case, and yeah, that would be hard to get up and know that I'm looking at a laptop. So all you're doing is validating. And you may do this empathy step, little 5-minute snippets for a few days, just to get all the emotion out. What you're doing, the science shows us, is you're building resilience. So over time, your kiddo will do that for themselves. They will listen to themselves. They will validate themselves. And the brain scans show, and I can show links to it, your myelin sheath gets thicker, how your brain routes, and you literally will light up new neural pathways that were there but weren't lit.
Wow.
So over time, and it just takes a little bit, this really works.
So through using empathy, through modeling empathy, through being empathetic, it's doing that for your kid and for you? Is it doing for the adult and the kid?
Yeah,
that's everybody involved.
That's the best point. So I'm Scottish and I can be a little bit of a hothead. So for me, what I notice when I'm doing is that it slows me down, right? It slows my rhythm down. And yeah, I'm a lot less stressed about my kid not doing what I'd like him to do, right? Go do your homework, go do your stuff, let me do my work. So yeah, it balances that quite a bit, which of course, now I'm more resilient. Now my problem solving is more lit up and I can think of ideas that I can't. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, empathy is the first part. I'm going to go quickly over the rest of it and we can link to the whole model. It really takes time to get this fidelity down and the pacing's right. But you do bring up the parental concern. So this isn't about the kid just getting to do whatever they want. That's not it. You're just starting with them feeling empowered and feeling heard and feeling safe, because then you can land the message, hey buddy, I've got a concern. It's just getting ready in the morning. Do you understand that? And he'll say yes or no. And then I'll say, what ideas do you have to solve it? So the shift there is the kiddo is the problem solver. And again, we go to validating mode, and we want our kids to problem solve and be resilient, right? That's what we want for them in life, to be awesome little humans. We agree on the approach, so you still have a say as a parent, and then you test it out. So it's a simple little thing. Dr. Stuart Abalon and Dr. Palastri at Harvard came up with this, along with Ross Green, and Dr. Bruce Perry's been on Oprah with it. It's a big deal. So that's collaborative problem solving, and it is epic right now when we're stressed, when this is going on. It's something you can do, and if nothing else, just do the empathy part. That alone will help.
Right. And open them up to be able to problem solve. And then what I know that I've learned about when we let kids be the problem solver and we agree upon the solution, it's pretty easy to have them execute it. Like when they're in on the decision, and even they came up with the idea, you're not having to force them or fight them to get them to do it. It's like, it's very easy actually once they're
fully invested, right? And it sounds weird, but it's actually a lot of fun. Like our kids are a lot more brilliant, at least than I realize sometimes. And the creative ideas, I'm like, wow.
I've seen that too. I've totally
I can
with
share
multiple kids too, right? Even when you have like multiple kids and you can facilitate the problem solving, it's amazingly beautiful what can happen. I've seen that even with really young children.
Totally. Yeah, I'll share a quick story. I'm happy to, about working with my son, and something that counselors, really incredibly talented PhDs, were surprised by. So kids on the spectrum, autism spectrum, and kids in general, can have a really vivid imagination. And for them, they can really experience the superhero really was in the room with them. Their brain, if you could play back the video, would say, yep, Thor was there or a dragon was there. They're not lying. It sounds like a lie to us, right? But where their brain is in their development, and if they're struggling with something like autism or ADHD or anything else, there was really something there. And it can be difficult for them to split the imaginary world, or what they see in TV and video games, with what you and I would call reality, with what we commonly experience as reality. And that's a big deal. That can be really rough, because they'll bring those things up in weird ways. And so one of the things over time, and I didn't expect this miracle to happen, it just did, just doing this with my son, maybe a few months of just little doses of empathy and trying some problem solving and not quite getting there. So you have to be consistent with this and resilient and have faith that it's going to work. One day he came up with the idea. I'm like, hey, Dad, what if I could just tell a big story once in a while and talk about the dragons and all that? And then when I'm done, we could talk about the day. And so after school, we did that. He would tell this amazing story, and sometimes dark, but all these things, and all the imagination was there. And then when I asked him about his day, it's what you and I would call reality. I went to school, I did this, I did that. And so he, over time, what's happening in the brain is he had figured out how to route imagination from not imagination, and he does it consistently every single day now. No meds, no like therapy, other than him deciding to solve it. So it's incredibly powerful. Yeah.
Ooh, what a neat technique. And to start with inviting him to share a story or create a story, and then that eases them into talking about his real day.
Right.
So interesting.
It's cool. Yeah, there's so many other cool stories. I have a couple more things I want to make sure I get to, but
please.
To quickly tell you, in the state of Oregon, all the juvenile detention places use collaborative problem solving. They no longer use restraints or seclusion at all. So it works in all sorts of situations, with really rough, situations, kids that have had a really hard life and circumstances, and it works with kids like mine that have a lot of blessings, but a stressor hits and they don't know how to handle it. So I can't say enough about it. I'm also biased. I'm on the board of Think Kids too now, so take it with a grain of salt, but I'm there because I love it and it works. So I have two more things to jump to. I want to make sure to serve your awesome viewers of Tune You. The second thing I want to talk about is just a simple mind hack that you can get maybe 2 to 3x out of your workday and school day. I talked briefly about it. Again, there's more on our website, but It's to really look at this adversity time and be honest that it's an adverse time, and figure out a way you can unite your family as a team against that. So things like making it a game, things like doing a routine in the morning where you say as a family what you're thankful for and what you need help with. Hey, I'm really struggling with this today. So really taking it as a team sport. And, you know, it's okay for your kids to do chores. It's okay for your kids to help in this. They're part of your family. Obviously balance that, trust your heart to do the right thing, but they're capable little people. And sometimes doing something helps. Sometimes vacuuming or dusting gives them an activity to do so they're not in suffering. So, I mean, I would encourage folks to flip this and play it as a team sport, and you're united against it and get really creative about it. Because if you look at history, anytime a culture or a type of group was hit with an adversity, they get incredibly tight, right? And really strong and overcome it together. So it's a tiny little mind shift.
Love that.
Instead of realizing you're alone and I have to do everything, you've got a whole crew to help you out. So,
and that this has to be a time that's going to tear families apart, that you're sharing, that actually times of adversity have shown to bring people together, so that even as a family we can see that it can be a time for that, and then even minds shift it like on purpose. So I love that.
You know, my screen just disappeared here, so I'm going to make sure it comes back. Can you see me okay? Okay, good. So for whatever reason, my slides decided to go. So I did want to talk briefly too about adversity, just as an example. Sometimes it's nice to think of another human that's experienced adversity and how they got through to realize we'll get through this as well, as overwhelming as it is. And his name's Paulo Coelho. A lot of people know him as a person that wrote The Alchemist, which is an incredibly powerful book and screenplay. What folks might not know about his life is he wanted to be a writer, and his dad and mom wanted him to be an engineer. And he was actually committed to a mental institution when he was 18 years old through 21 years old because of that.
Wow.
The stress and struggles go on for him. He turned to music, and the music in the country he was in was viewed by that government as oppressive, and he was jailed for that. So, you know, here's a guy that's showing up and doing what he loves, writing and music, and the world responding and, you know, locking him up, literally. That didn't stop him. I mean, he got out of jail and became a writer and wrote The Alchemist. And one of the things here in the screen share that may or may not be working is a quote from him that says, "When we least expect it, life sends us a challenge to test our courage and willingness to change. At such a moment, there is no point in pretending that nothing has happened or in saying that we are not yet ready. The challenge will not wait. Life does not look back." So I just encourage people, this is scary, and I hear lots of my friends talking about it. It doesn't have to paralyze us, right? And we can get through this together in a really strong way, and we will. So the last thing is I'm going to shift to learning modalities. So we've talked a little about brain science and a little bit of mind hack and how to work your family together. There are 3 simple things that you can use to unlock your child's learning potential, and they're really straightforward and easy. So I talked in the beginning a little bit about my kid isn't listening to me. They're not hearing me. And in some ways that's true, and in some ways that's not. So there's 3 ways that we all learn. And there's a primary modality that our brain likes to take in information, and then there's secondary. But and those are auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. So hearing, seeing, and feeling, touching. Some folks split kinesthetic into kinesthetic and tactile. If you're one of the people listening, know that there's there. I'm combining them just because it's easier to explain. There's some nuance there if you want to get into it. But so seeing, hearing, and feeling. You can tell that I'm visual because I said seeing first. So auditory is what most of our modern education is in. Are you listening to me? I gave you a direction verbally. Are you following it? Right? And you'll notice our valedictorians and our top performers in schools are usually auditory, and much of the population is. I think it's north of 60% are. But, you know, you take information by hearing. You like doing books on tape or online now in Audible. You know, anything, music. If those things resonate with you, there's a likelihood that that's your primary. Visual, just like it sounds like, you take information visually. By the way, there are keywords here. If you hear someone say auditory, I hear what you mean, they're auditory. If you hear someone say, I see what you mean, they're
Huh.
visual, right? And then kinesthetic, I feel what it's like. Those are your
Uh,
keys.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So they'll communicate it. They'll give it away.
Huh.
Visual is, so this is a tough one because visual folks like demonstrations, anything they can see and experience. Checklists can help them. If you have a kiddo that's struggling to get ready and you're telling them what to do, make a visual checklist, and that might get a lot better. So they take in the world visually, what they see. Kinesthetic can be the trickiest to work with. I'll just be honest with you. Kinesthetic people, kiddos and adults, like to move. They're the wiggle worms. They're always wiggling. Anything physical they can do and act out and get their hands on is a big deal. A lot of times these kiddos will need like a stress ball or some clay or something to have in their hands and work with. So visual, auditory, kinesthetic, just knowing that, not that we're all going to be teachers and professional educators, but knowing that for your kids and also for yourself. Like if someone's communicating with you and it's not landing, or your workplace is mostly auditory, you're on conference calls and it's talk, 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 you may need to draw a picture for that to land. If you're wondering why you're forgetting things, just drawing a picture, which is also a little bit kinesthetic, can help. So knowing those three modalities, and Tony Buzan and some others have done great work. We'll put links below later around this, will really help you and your kiddos thrive. And if you want your kids to listen to you, or really what you want is to take the information you're giving them and act on it, it's a great way for that to happen.
Yeah. I have a question, Chris, along those lines. Because I know I really learn things well by writing them down. So would that be visual or kinesthetic or a combination of the two?
I will tell you what I know, and I'm not an expert there. So I would think the writing part leans a little bit more towards tactile.
Yeah.
But the writing list is a visual thing.
So
you could be both. And by the way, we have a primary and we have secondary. And it's a good thing to mix them up so we all can take in information as best we can. But you cater to the primary as much as you want. I guess what I would ask is, if you see a demo of something done, is it easier to learn it that way? Or is it someone touching and holding and helping you move, like in a yoga pose maybe? Like that might help delineate what your primary is.
Probably I need to do something to learn it versus watch someone do it.
Yeah. So you're probably more kinesthetic.
Yeah.
The fourth one I mentioned is tactile, and that's a little more the writing part. But I would guess you're probably lean kinesthetic. Visual is probably your secondary and a really strong one, and auditory is probably your third. That's just my guess.
I love that you're bringing this up, though. I feel like that's really helpful for parents to remember right now, with considering being maybe even more involved with their kids' educations, to just really remember we all have those different learning styles, and the more that we can be aware of how our kids learn, probably the smoother things are going to go, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
No, that's totally true. Yeah. The last part is, and just reminding folks, I put together for each of those three things we talked about today a little bit more depth, and they can opt into a 3-email sequence and they'll get more information. I won't spam you. I'm not going to sell your info. I'm really here to serve, but a little more on each if they want to take it with them. So if they go to youfromhome.com and there's a big button on the red that says get help, it's not subtle. Click on that and you can opt in. And I'd love the chance to serve you, whether it's for free or for fee, and really help you through this, because there are proven ways to get through all the things we're going through. There's lots of help out there. And I think it's just up to us as parents is to, and step into this and be leaders for our families through this hard time.
Wow. Geez, this was so solid and practical. And these tools you've shared are amazing. And I love how you share that it's to help us thrive. And that one of those tools was just to even have that vision, that feeling of what that would look like and feel like for ourselves and our families. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. So our brains, I talked a little about our primitive brain, they're doing their job. It's doing a great job of survival. So it's going to introduce the least risky thing ever. And its job is survival, not thriving. It's a little tiny tweak. So we on purpose have to put some energy towards the thriving stuff, because our brain's going to do its job and want to keep us alive. and then that spot, and we have to push it a little bit and say, hey, I'm really actually more interested in thriving. And as soon as you kind of tell your brain that, it will put the energy there. It's a goal achieving machine, and it's going to make sure you reach your goal. So a lot of this is communicating to your brain and your body that you're more interested in thriving than surviving. And
right. And that
yeah.
you share how we can help our kids be more in that thriving mode instead of survival mode, right? Which is what that fight or flight stress response is.
Right.
So,
I mean, can you imagine a world where
see.
all of our kids are thriving, right? And what this planet would look like? I mean, it's amazing.
And how our tone as parents and our words as parents, right, is what can help that with that empathy piece that you shared. Oh man, that's so important. Huh. I am excited about that. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I so appreciate this. Yeah. Anything else you want to say to parents before we close up?
No, just again, thanks. I really acknowledge you, Laura Jane, and anyone listening for listening through this. Obviously, you're a caring parent and person and human to be there. So please keep it up. We need more of that on this planet. And again, just honored to be here and really excited. One last thing I would say is, and just remember always, whether it looks like it or not, all of us as humans are really giving it our best. And if it looks like there's stuff coming up, it's because we don't yet have the skill to get there. It's not intentional.
Yes.
It really isn't. And doesn't seem like it. And we can, of course, come up with examples on the extremes of people, but let's ignore the extremes for a moment. The people you and I encounter every day, if something's coming up for them or our kids, it's a skill thing, not a will thing. They're not intending to be harmful or hurtful or mean or upset or anything else. It's just they don't have the skill to do anything else yet. And by using these approaches, you're going to help them build those skills and get there.
I love that. That's such a wise, loving approach to have with the world and our children, right? And ourselves. Wow. Oh, so well said. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing because you have such a beautiful content coming through. So yes. And so, yeah, parents hopefully now know that you're available to serve, and you've already shared amazing free links, and that you're going to be offering the one-on-one coaching. And are you offering some group things too as we come into fall? I feel like
I will first have one-on-one stuff. I mix that with groups as well. So I'll call in some experts, so you don't only have to listen to me, and get support from other parents. It can be pretty powerful to bond with other parents going through the same thing.
Okay, so kind of that mastermind effect is
exactly
going on there too.
Yep.
Great, and that's all you from home is where they can find that.
You got it. You from home.com.
You made it so easy. All right. Well, thanks so much, Chris, and thank you to you parents who've been here with us. Appreciate your time and attention. Hope you found some pieces that have been helpful. I'm pretty positive you did. So, yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. Take care.
We'll post those slides for you all to see if they didn't show up for you. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Adios, y'all. Thanks.
Bye-bye now.